the next, hopefully 45 minutes to an hour, are going to be both enlightening, informative, and hopefully a little enjoyable in regards to what the Green Team and the trustees and others at church, Lacewing Gardening, has been working on diligently to try to improve the appearance of our landscaping, reduce our cost on the landscaping, and hopefully enhance the property more. So, Susan, you want to introduce some people, I believe?
Yeah, but you had a wire. Good morning. Thank you again for staying. I'm Susan, and thank you. And as chair of trustees, this is such an incredibly wonderful opportunity for us to honor what we need to do to take care of God's world and to make a difference in our community. It's local and it's bigger than that. It's bigger than all of us. So with that, I will turn it over to Bill.
Thank you, Susan. And I will introduce three members of Lacewing that are here today to help share their expertise. Excuse me, Amy Vernon. And Amy, I'll let you explain what you do there. Okay. CJ Hanks was here, and I've already forgotten your first name. Justin is also. So these are the three members of Lacewing Gardening that we've been working with for, about several months worth of effort have been put into this. Project Vision, if you could see that up there at work, it's all pretty self-explanatory, demonstrate to greater Salem Kaiser community stewardship of creation care. The goal here, I think, is to live out our faith and our belief in that creation care is one of the most important things we can do as a church. Become more resilient to climate change, combat native species decline, lots of reasons to give some thought to paying more attention to the climate that we all share and what's in store for the future. We're also trying to work with other churches in the area who are already doing the kind of pollinator plant work that we are hoping to be able to initiate here and plant and grow for the future. As an example of what this can look like, if you just go right across the street to the executive building, right here on State, you'll see exactly what a fully developed pollinator area can look like. When they refurbished the building, they also did a tremendously, I think, a nice job on the grounds as well. You'll see pretty much nothing but clover over there and lots of native plants over there, and the goal is just to be more welcoming to the pollinators than some places have been, and also just trying to be more resilient. Next slide, please. This is where you guys take over, so I'll turn the mic over to these guys.
Do you want to introduce yourselves now or later? Later's fine. Great. So my name is Amy Vernon. I am, if you can't tell, I would say one of my roles on our team at Lacewing Gardening is being the bug nerd, which is why I will be talking about pollinators. But overall, I'd say that Lacewing Gardening, we're focused on wanting to help people and wanting to help planet and pollinators to thrive. So that looks like helping people plant food for themselves, but also plant food and habitat for different creatures, bugs, birds, all of the creatures that we have care of. So pollinators, I would guess a lot of you know this, but pollinators are any creature that help our flowering plants to pollinate, to create seed, and to continue into further generations. So that can be bees, butterflies, beetles, even be rodents, all sorts of different creatures. And they produce around a third of the food that we eat, as well as they support around 85% of the flowering plant species in the world to continue on. So obviously very integral to both our thriving and the ecosystem overall. They also give us a lot of beauty in our world. I think anyone who's spent time in gardens can affirm that. You can go to the next slide. Thanks. Unfortunately, a lot of our pollinators are in decline. These statistics are mostly from the Xerces Society. So it's estimated around 28% of bumblebee species are in decline, around 19% of butterflies in the United States are threatened with extinction, and from the studies that they've done, it seems like we're losing around 1 to 2% of the total numbers of insects worldwide each year, which is significant. So that begs the question, why? Why are we losing our insects? Some of it is climate change, you know, that insects and all of creation are trying to adapt to conditions they haven't had to deal with before. But also there's a lot of human caused factors. So habitat loss, as we expand our cities, we take out a lot of habitat. We put in a lot of lawns, which are unfortunately really ecosystem deserts. And then a lot of our plant landscaping is also not native, which means that it's just not something that's co-evolved with the species that have lived here for so many years. There's also pesticide, herbicide use that has become more and more common both in agriculture and also in home gardening. So the good news is that we can genuinely make a huge difference. You know, when I think about conservation, it's way more manageable and realistic for us to conserve insects versus tigers, you know, at least when we are getting involved. You know, there's these little tiny creatures can actually survive in a yard landscape or a church property landscape. So one study that they did is they looked at just common backyards, and if people left the leaves instead of raking them, you had around 1,800 insects that would hatch out of around, I think it's 11 square feet of leaves, right? So if you think about all the leaves that people are raking up, if you just left them, that's providing food for birds, that's providing, you know, your entire ecosystem with greater health. We can also provide floral resources, so planting flowers, planting meadowscapes, planting native plants. And in case you're like, why is there a chicken or a rooster on this slide? It's because there's a whole myriad of ways to decrease our pesticide use. And one of those is you can use chickens, you can use ducks, you can, you know, sort of let the ecosystem rebalance itself if you have the patience to allow the natural predators to move in. And then we also have the chance to do education. You know, if you put a sign in your yard or a sign in front of your church to educate other people, you can spread that movement, and something that starts small can really grow and become something very big and meaningful. So in our design, we have focused on using native plants. Why native plants in particular? Native plants are adapted and resilient in our ecosystem. So if you know camas, camas will be blooming right now, and then it will go dormant in the summer months, right? Which means that you're not having to provide all of that supplemental watering and irrigation during the summer because they've already adapted to those climate conditions. They also aren't requiring fertilizers. And so it's not only more natural in your ecosystem, but it's also cutting down on costs for your community when you're putting those plants in. I would also like to say they're just an integral part of the cultures of the people whose lands we are on. Camas is such an important food source. Tarweed, which is the yellow flower, was also a food source and is a food source for communities whose land we are now on. So it's important not only for our ecosystem, but also for the people, out of respect for them. As I said, a lot of our native plants are tied into our ecosystem better. So here you can see the pink flowers are Clarkias, which leafcutter bees, our native leafcutter bees, will use to line their nests. That's Pacific aster, the purple flowers on the left, which provide nectar, but then they also, the downy fluff on the seeds are used by hummingbirds in their nests. And then the bottom one is milkweed, which a lot of people know is supporting monarchs, both as when they're caterpillars, but also later when they are butterflies and need the floral resources. So this is a study coming out of OSU. They were comparing native plants to, in this case, they used lavender. You can see it in the middle. So lavender is a plant that is not native that people often think of as being very good for bees. And so they did this study and they showed that lavender provides food for around 8 species of bees in Oregon, whereas the rest of these are natives, and you can see that Pacific aster, which was on that last slide, actually provided food for 72 different species of bees here in Oregon. And so that just shows you that these native plants are integrally connected to our diversity of insects and wildlife. And so if we can plant those, we can do more good. So the more that we can focus on those plants that are already tied into our ecosystem, the more difference we can make. And then obviously, the climate is shifting. There's a lot of different challenges, but we can support the threats that face our native plants by having different places that we're putting them in, by using them in landscaping, and also by sharing them in the community. So even by having a small patch of native plants in your yard or in front of your church, it gives you the opportunity to share seeds with the community. It gives you the opportunity, as those plants grow, to divide them and share them with other people. And the more places that you put these plants in, the more opportunities they have to adapt to the climate. You know, even your backyard versus your neighbor's backyard will have different microclimates, and so it just means giving them more chances to try and adapt to the different conditions they're facing. Next.
Well, I want to apologize for not mentioning this first. We are going to be open to questions and answers at the end of this presentation, so if you could hold off on your queries, that would be helpful till we get to the end. The project focus we're working on right now is we've decided that we're going to start small and try to work our way around the property as time and money permit. For phase 1, we're going to work on an area just out in front of this building here. Here we go, Memorial Native Tree Garden. There is a family in the church who has wished to have a memorial tree planted for one of their deceased family members, and so we're going to incorporate that into this native tree garden. If you'll notice right there, it's going to be, if you're looking from the street, that's sort of like the street view of the Micah building, it's going to be there we go right there, it's going to be this side of the bushes that are there, right there. Next, please. Thank you. This is sort of the drone view of it, I guess, and this is an approximation of where it'll go in and what it'll look like. If you notice, there will be the memorial tree will be prominently placed in the larger of the 2 spaces that are to be cleared, but there's also going to be a number of native plants. Other plants are going to be incorporated in that area as well. One of the first things we're going to do to start this project is we're going to use, as per these guys' recommendation, we're going to use cardboard and compost as a way to clear the space and try to clear some of the plants that are in there, the grass that's in there right now. And I wasn't aware of the fact that that's the best approach for maintaining more microbes in your soil. And it will take a good deal of time to do. So that's why we want to get started with this project number 1, this spring, in the very near future, because we're going to have to just mark out the area, then we're going to have to lay down the cardboard, and then we're going to have to stake down the cardboard, and then we're going to have to put some compost on there so that you can, so that it will help to develop new bedding. Next slide. Okay.
I'm going to talk for just a second. So with this design, this very simple design, I'm CJ. I'm part of Lacewing Gardening. Around the memorial tree, we have proposed planting what's called a plant guild. And so what is a plant guild? We can go to the next slide. A guild invites us to think like an ecosystem. So Amy just described how native plants can be really supportive to the whole community of creation, a whole ecosystem. If you think about an ecosystem, most of them, almost all in the world, are not monocultures. So like a field of wheat is a monoculture. It's just one thing planted over and over again. Lawns usually are monocultures, one thing. And that just doesn't support a very big amount of creatures and systems. So we're thinking about diversity. We're thinking about different roles, plants that are going to provide ground cover, plants that are going to provide nourishment for different creatures, plants that are going to provide habitat. Maybe some will provide mulch by leaving their leaves. They'll bloom at different seasons. And an ecosystem that is from this region that you can go take a look at, I think Bush Park is the one that has it, is the oak savanna. That is what this area used to look like. And so if you think about the different plants that were part of that oak savanna, the oak trees, and then the different parts of the savanna, the camas, the Pacific black snakeroot, the different flowers in there, all had different roles in that ecosystem. And that's the same way we're trying to think about what we're going to be planting here. We're basically inviting the rest of the ecosystem in. We're inviting microorganisms back into the soil. We're inviting fungi into the soil. We're inviting insects and birds and maybe even some small rodents that won't come into the building, hopefully. But voles are really important to our ecosystem. So we're inviting the ecosystem back into that space, whereas the lawn is a very inhospitable place for most of the ecosystem. We would decide on a memorial tree after we understand better the soil and the sun and shade of the particular garden that it's going to go in. And then from that decision, we'll make the decision about the plants. And so this is just an example of one type of guild. It's got, you could have a Oregon oak or a madrone, and then these plants go with that. They've evolved to grow together. The insects and birds have evolved to grow with them and be a part of that system. And so that's what our guild will be. All right, I think the next slide. That's generally where the garden will go. I don't know if Bill needs to talk now.
Another purpose that we're trying to do is we're trying to give I guess a better overall visual appeal to the property. Sometimes we have been told that some people don't realize that our church is actually 2 buildings and not just one. And so effort to get some consistency of look and various projects along those lines hopefully is going to be able to draw the campus closer together, so it'll be more, it'll help supplement what we've already tried to do with signage and so forth. So we're going to try to match some of the plantings with our signs. And I also want to make sure that you understand that this effort that we have in mind is not going to entail some wholesale destruction of what is already out there, because there are legacy plantings on the property. There are some things that we want to maintain to carry on that legacy, but we want to try to complement them in some way. So, next slide. Next slide, please.
Hi, yeah, my name is Justin Hanks, married to CJ, and the way that I play my part in Lacewing is I'm very concrete in the way that I think, and so I'm a lot of times the implementer of the project. And so what you see here is I'm going to talk about 2 methods of possible converting the lawn to a garden space. And the first is sod removal. So you see here 2 pictures, lovely pictures. The one's a manual and the other one is really high-tech and fancy. Neither of those would be what we would use. It would be kind of a walk behind, would leave the sod there and you'd have to manually roll it up and manually get it onto a truck. It is an effective way of removing grass, but it is going to be the more expensive way. it also uses a considerable amount of fossil fuels. The other thing is that it requires heavy labor, the disposing of sod and the rental of equipment, which makes it harder for congregational participation, and it also makes it harder to replicate, which was a goal of the team here for First United Methodist, so that other churches could also possibly see what you were doing and then replicate it on their properties. And so, yeah, you've got the extra task of sod removal, and then you've got the cost of bringing that back up to grade by adding in compost and soil. You can go to the next one. So the second method, and is the one that we recommend because it's more earth-friendly, you're covering, basically you're weed whacking the grass down very low, and then you're covering it with like a soaked cardboard. And then on top of that, you're layering compost and mulch. Basically what this does is it kills the grass by taking away its sunlight and its oxygen. And the anaerobic process then allows it to decompose underneath. This would be the less expensive method, more accessible, more repeatable, more earth-friendly. And it allows for involvement from the congregation. We'll be asking the congregation to bring in all their cardboard and store it here so that it could be part of the project. Yeah. So you can see a before and after. The after on this would be a little different because there'd be wood chips or mulch on top of that compost. Basically, in the spring, soonish, you would, depending which method you went with, you would be seeing out there the compost, the mulch. We would change the irrigation so that it would go into that area as well. And then in the fall, we would do plantings so that they had the maximum advantage. You wouldn't have to water them as much and whatnot. So. I mean, if we started this project earlier in the spring, we could have done it all at the same time. But because we're so late now, and the summer is weirdly already coming here. You wouldn't want to plant it now. They would struggle. I think it would be better to wait until the fall. So yes, in our case, in this specific situation, it would be a longer time period. So.
Did we skip a slide? Okay. Great. All right. So those are the two options, and here's just the estimated total. I just wanted to point out about the estimates. This is assuming that Lacewing, us three, would be doing the majority of the work, and that the congregation doesn't have access to like a truck with a trailer. So the more community involvement there is, that would lower some of these costs. So like if there was a volunteer day, a Saturday where we all got together and Lacewing was there and we did the cardboard as a team, that would reduce our number of hours that you had to pay us. For example, if somebody has a trailer that could go pick up the compost, that would reduce the cost. So those are I just wanted to make sure that that was obvious in these estimates. So that's with the sod cutter and with the cardboard. And then Justin already talked about the timeline. And then Bill.
So we see our efforts as potentially benefiting the church in many ways. Educationally, there's a couple of things we could do. We wanted to have some signage that would be easily accessible by the general public walking by so they could see what's going on, because we would hope they would like to know. And also educationally, there are various opportunities to employ, for example, our Sunday school program. If we wanted to get the kids out there for a day of, working the soil or doing whatever, those are available. Well, because I think that would be a tremendously valuable lesson for them. Enhancing our landscaping look would be nice. Honoring a member of our congregation through the planting of the memorial tree. And then last but certainly not least, saving on our maintenance and watering costs. I believe that church administration made a very valid and appreciated support move by canceling our landscaping contract, thereby, somewhat easing some of the burden that we were experiencing earlier in the budget year, but also that they have faith in what we are doing and that they are willing to support that way. That's it in a nutshell, and I apologize. I've been accused of having a rather nervous tongue at times, so so thank you for that. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts or comments or concerns? Yes, sir. Yes. Right, that's the goal. Is eventually it'll break down and erode and eventually just become part of an enriched soil base. Chuck. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's going to need to be some ongoing maintenance support. That's a good point to bring up, and we have. So you can probably watch for some requests or some asks, if you will, for like a volunteer opportunity to help prep this, help mow this lawn, help in some way. And I know that we have a pretty solid core of volunteers who have done this in the past, and we're hoping that we can, if not just rely on them, expand that somewhat so that we can help to continue to support the overall landscape of the church while at the same time these projects are ongoing. Good question.
Hi, I used to belong to a community garden, but in a different state. And the city that I lived in would actually bring the compost to us for free. I'm assuming Salem does not offer a free service like that. Considering you're a church, perhaps they would actually bring the compost to you for free?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite understand what it is that they bring.
I actually looked into this because in Newburgh they have free compost that you can pick up, and I was looking into that for Salem because I don't know this area. So, I mean, if anybody knows about that, that'd be great. What I could find was not anything like that. It seemed like they used to for this area have like like a government-run composting situation, which doesn't exist anymore from what I could find. I mean, maybe that's not the case. And now there's like Bark Boys and other companies that provide that. And she did, I think, misspeak about it wouldn't be more cost effective for trailers to bring mulch here or compost because, I mean, they bring a really big truck here and they'll do it all in one go, and it won't be that expensive.
My original. You think I need a mic?
Yes.
This is being recorded, so that would be
I'm just glad that you guys had a mic because I'm behind you and I couldn't hear some of you. So what was my question? Oh, what is our fund right now? I brought some bottles in. I hope all of you know about the blue bags. How much do we have accumulated so far towards this project?
Good question. If you check your electronic emails that come, or you have a printed edition back there, which is what I found, if there is a list of the grant writing efforts that Patty Sloan has made to this point, approximately about between $4,000 to $5,000 has been raised at by this point through grants and so forth, so that we know there's going to be a lot of cost involved in this, and so that's why we're trying to take kind of a conservative effort and take things on one project at a time, so that we don't get over our skis too much with that. Any other?
Yeah, it's on? Yeah, okay. The price that you quoted up there, it's just that first phase of preparing the beds. It doesn't count any plantings or anything besides the preparing?
It counts the entire process of that phase. So it's all the plantings, fixing the irrigation, and getting that space ready of just that phase. Does that make sense? So it's not a huge, considering the size of your property, it's a small amount, but it's the whole, from replacing the sod to planting.
Okay,
including,
so it's buying the tree, buying all of the shrubs and flowers or whatever you're planting.
And I think when we did that, we definitely did not, Amy did the research for the estimate for the tree. Do you know how big was it?
How big?
Like how big the tree was?
I think. Do you have the guild slide? Because I think that is. Oh, I think it was like a year.
So small, a young tree. That's what that
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Generally, I tried to use a few nurseries either in the area. It just depends. Some of them, if it's out of stock, they won't even show you the price. And so I did my best to be like, okay, let's assume that we want plants that are at least, a decent size going in the ground. So all of our estimate is based off of, things that are at least a year old, not your teeny tiny seedlings that would potentially get lost in mulch.
We're looking to get our front lawn redone with natural pollinator garden, whatever. And so this is a great price. And I can just assure you of that, because after seeing what we might get charged. The other thing I wanted to say is that I love the educational component. We don't live very far from St. Paul's Episcopal Church. And they're doing a lot of things about trying to save water, to save the white oaks that are there. And so they have signs all around their building. And I'm like, oh, I walk by there and read it. And I'm impressed that they are, that's the way they're living out their faith for our ecosystem. So I just want to put in a plug for all that education.
Is there a total cost for the entire project?
Good question, Bob. We have asked, these guys were kind enough to find.
Is there a total cost for the entire project? Bob told me to repeat that.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. The estimate that has been used was given to us by the folks at Lacewing, and they got their research by contacting a very similarly oriented company in Eugene that does this commercially. And they were talking, how much was it per square foot? Do you remember? Okay, $6 to $8 per square foot. So, with all of the projects we have in mind, that is going to add up, and so that's why we're taking it a very cautious approach. And the proposal is to do the project, and we're pretty much well funded to do that at this point in time. And we're hoping that's going to generate some more support, financial as well as other kinds, so that we can address this. But we're all committed to not doing anything until we know we have the funding to do it, regardless of how long that takes. So, any other questions or thoughts?
I just have a comment. If you've ever priced sod, if we could sell the sod to members and put a sign out front or make a contract with somebody who needed it, I could use some. I would be willing to pay for that sod because it's valuable.
Thank you, Nancy. We'll take that in mind.
Hi, I think we need to have a sign up for people that can donate certain plants or trees because I could.
She's a good source. Thank you, Pauline. And we're hoping, I guess one of the long-term things I'm hoping is going to come out of this meeting today is spreading the word. I mean, one way that we're doing that is we're, of course, recording this, and we can make that available to people online somehow. So if they wish to see or learn more, they can attend that. And also, you know, we all know people, we all know sources potentially, and it's just a matter of trying to put the source to the need when the need arises. So if anybody has sources of support they would like to discuss further, please give me a call. I would love to hear it. Does Lacewing have any last minute things they want to say? Okay. You're done?
Where are we from? So Justin and I are from South Central Pennsylvania, and the three of us met on a farm called Elahay up north of Yamhill. It's Elahay Indigenous Justice Center, run by the Woodleys, who maybe you've heard of. Randy Woodley has written quite a few books about basically church and theology, but from an indigenous perspective. And so we met there and worked there for the last 3 years. And I'll let Amy, we don't work there anymore. We started Lacewing. I'll let Amy.
I'm Justin, I'm not Amy. We also just bought a property in McMinnville, so we're now residents of Oregon. And yes, it's better than Pennsylvania, in my opinion.
I'm also not from Oregon originally. I grew up mostly in Colorado, but came out to the farm a little bit after CJ and Justin. And similarly, I mean, I love Colorado as well, but I've also really enjoyed Oregon, hence why I'm still here.
Anyone else? Any other thoughts? Well, thank you all for your time this morning. Thanks goes to Alicia for doing such a wonderful job with the slideshow. Please give her a hand.
Thank you all for your time. Thank you for coming and speaking, and we appreciate you.
Have a great day.